Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are back. Politics Done Right is back from Washington, D.C. and the March for Our Lives. Let me first tell you, of course, we were supposed to send you those 15-second little snippets from, what is it called, Patreon. But as it turns out, it didn't work as we expected. But don't worry, my dear patrons. There will be more for you when we get our stickers, etc., etc., etc. We'll take care of that. Folks, please, before we get started, I want to remind all our listeners or watchers, the first thing I'd like to ask you to do is share this program. Now, we have a great subject that we're going to talk about today. It's about unions, but we're also going to talk about other things other than unions, because this march in Washington, D.C., the TV didn't do it justice. How do I know that the TV didn't do it justice? I had to leave a little bit earlier because I was spending some time with my daughter as I was covering this thing, and she felt a little bit she was a little bit hypoglycemic, so we had to go get something to eat. So I said, okay, let's go ahead and do that, and we'll go to a restaurant, and at the same time, we'll continue watching the coverage on CNN. And it doesn't matter if it was CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, or whatever. The coverage didn't do justice to the energy that you had out there in Washington, D.C. while those great speakers were talking. It was great. Folks, again, if you're listening right now, it is imperative, please, share the program on Facebook, all on your pages, all on your walls, because what we want to do, we are covering important subjects. We're covering important subjects in a different context that you would see on network TV. And look, I don't want to hit the network TV up too hard as I normally do, because they also have to pay their bills, and their bills are paid for by the regular advertisers. So I understand that they have to be careful in what they have to do. However, the Politics Done Rights of the world, the TYT of the world, the management, the majority reports of the world, they don't have to, we don't have those restrictions, because we are entirely covered by you. We are entirely covered by you. You are the ones who support us. And before I go any further, that's what I should do. I should look at you and say, folks, please do remember to support. We need you to support Politics Done Right. And that address that you see right there on the screen tells you how to do it. That tells you you can be actually a great supporter of independent news, which is something that we need. If we want to be sure that we are going to get the news that we need, if we want to be sure that we are going to get the news that are going to allow us to make the proper decisions, the only way to do that is for us to have independent media that owes itself to nobody but you. So if you're just listening now, please go ahead and share this program on your walls, share this program everywhere. Even if you're only listening to 1 minute of the program, if you're only listening to 2 minutes of the program, if you're only listening to 5 minutes of the program, the first thing I'm asking you to do, share the program. Senor Chase Escamilla, thank you for sharing the program. We also have Pat Twain, thank a union for the list is too long. Well, Pat, maybe you should kind of write down some of the things in case I miss some when I'm talking about. But I want to talk about more than the list of things that unions have done for Americans. I want to talk about why it is so important, my dear friends, that we reestablish unions, that we make sure that unions take off. That is the only way we're going to cure the income inequality, the wealth disparity in this country. Juan Garza, de Commerce, Colorado, thank you very much for being here. And one of our regular listeners, welcome back, Bruce, welcome back to the show, Bruce. And, I take a lot of critique from my listeners, and one of my listeners said, When you're not getting calls, why aren't you paying more attention to the Facebook feed? Because we are speaking to you too. For those of you who maybe believe that for some reason you were ignored on Facebook page, remember that I see them all. Sometimes I don't see it in real time because the scrolling just doesn't work right all the times. And sometimes it is just difficult for me to do all these things at the same time. But I promise you, as we move along with this program, to do better. I promise you that I'm going to have it more interactive with Facebook as I'm more comfortable controlling all these things. Back at KPFT, I have a producer that works with me and an engineer that works with me. So there are all kinds of people that are working on the program. The Politics Done Right Daily is solely done by one person, and all this, the equalizers and everything is handled by one person, myself, and the phone calls, myself. I have somebody to handle that at KPFT. I don't have anybody to do that right here. So please bear with me as I learn to multitask better to serve you best. Again, folks, the telephone number that you would call is right there on your screen. It is 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. Now, let me tell you somewhat about DC. I got there. I'll tell you the DC story because I tell you what, it was beautiful. I got to DC late. Well, actually, I got to Baltimore, flew into Baltimore, and I had to stay over for a few hours in Baltimore. Then took train down to I Ubered down to Washington DC, and the first thing I did when I got there is to go out to watch them set up the place. And looking at the setup, I kept on saying to myself, I wonder if this place is going to fill up, because if the March for Our Lives didn't bring out enough people, if the March for Our Lives didn't bring the kind of people that signed up, the kind of people that said they were going to come, what would have happened is not only the right wing, but the media would have spun it as a failure. Once again, a lot of people got killed by guns, by assault rifles, and once again, Americans get mad about it, and when it's time to do something about it, they do nothing. Americans are meek. Americans are wimps. Americans can't accomplish anything. They have an attention span of a gnat. They just can't do it. Well, you know what, folks? These young people organized an event. These young students organized an event. The future of this country is really in the hands of the millennials. It's really in the hands of the people that are coming up. And I got some interviews with people that made me feel, from the young ones. And you know what? I didn't have it queued up to show you, but you know what I want to do? I am, as I'm speaking to you right now, I'm going to go ahead. I'm looking for the video right now because I honestly think this video of young people, and these aren't even the high school students. These are the ones that are younger than high school students. And in talking to these guys, I tell you what, I was very impressed, because what it told me is that everything that we believed about young people, we have a lot of people talking about the young people are not performing, the young people are this young. No. It is the adults. It is the baby boomers. It is Gen Xers. They're the ones that are controlling the system right now. And it's they who are putting the wrong folks in office. It is they who are doing that. But what I saw with our millennials, my friends, what I saw with our millennials, I'm going to tell you something. It just told me that they are ready to take the mantra. They are ready to take over. I found it, and guess what? I found it. And what I'm going to do for you guys, I'm going to play it for you as soon as I can scale it appropriately, because this is I'm making all these adjustments real time. Like I said, I don't have the producer with me right now, so what I'm going to do is play this for you, because like I said, I was impressed with these guys. I won't be able to hear it because we have some control issues here, but I want to play this for you.
We want change. We want new laws enacted that actually support less guns.
And these are all your friends?
Yes.
All of you from Maryland? And how old are you?
I'm 17.
And you?
Just turned 18.
And you? And you?
I'm 18.
Your name?
Miles Payton.
Do you think that kids approaching politicians would actually get results?
Yes, I do.
Why?
I believe that we're the generation that can actually make change. I think that we are going to be adults one day. We're going to be in their position. So I feel like it starts with us.
Now, a lot of times the young people, 18-year-olds and above, don't go out to vote. Are you guys making a promise that you're going to vote to make a difference? Are you all going to vote to make a difference?
Yes.
We go to University of Central Florida.
And what are you doing here in Washington, D.C.?
We are hoping to march for our lives, so we're protesting for basic gun control. Yeah.
Now, how old are you?
19.
And your name?
Abby.
What was your name?
Autumn.
Autumn.
Well, I mean, the Stone Douglas shooting was like right by us, and that it was a big impact. So obviously, we wanted to come up and like try to do some change.
What's your name?
I'm Mackenzie.
Do you really think this is going to make a difference?
I feel like it's a start. Like it's truly a start. Like I said, I'm from Charleston, so that's where we had the church shooting, and that was like enough for me. But they keep on happening, and I'm tired of it. So I feel like this protest, like bringing everyone together, will hopefully unify the country, so they see that there's an actual problem. Because the first step is addressing that there's a problem, and then we can start fixing or finding solutions.
My name's Nat. Jacob.
Where are you guys from?
Maine.
What are you here for?
We're here to protest gun violence in the U.S. We think it's a big issue, and specifically we're protesting the NRA.
Now, do you think that is going to make a difference?
I think definitely. I think that, the NRA's biggest fear is the people, is us. And once we, expose the impact that they have in Congress, the uneven impact they have in Congress, I think that definitely is going to make an impact, and we're going to push our lawmakers to not be swayed so much by the NRA.
I'm 16.
You're 16 and you are?
15.
And you are?
14. We're here to help the cause of making gun control a thing in our country.
Now, do you think you can make a difference?
We think that a lot of people are here to protest, and a lot of these people can vote, so we can make legislative change as well. I mean, it really is kind of scary that just a few weeks ago, our school had a lockdown because there was a threat of someone on campus with a gun. It wasn't a real threat, but the fact that that even existed and had to be an issue in which we were calling our relatives, telling them that we loved them and weren't sure if we were going to survive is, in the words of Emma Gonzalez, BS.
Now, you can't tell me that if these kids start this young with this level of activism, with this level of saying that, you know what, we are going to make a difference, we're in good hands. We are in very good hands. They've started early. They know what they want to do. And I tell you one other thing that garnered a whole lot of, what I should say is a whole lot of hope from me, is a conservative woman. I saw this woman walk, as I was walking down the path. I mean, it's a long path and it was huge. I mean, it was hundreds of thousands of people. And what I was trying to do is not get into the path where I couldn't run around and talk to folk, because if you got into certain parts of the barriers, you just couldn't get in any, you were just hosed. You couldn't get in any longer. So what I did is I found a way to go into a section that I could actually, as people were marching in, could actually talk to them. And I said to myself, you know what, that is exactly what I'm going to do. So there was this conservative woman that I saw. She was walking with a banner, and she was just walking off, and I kind of said, hey ma'am, I'd love to talk to you. And a lot of times conservatives are hesitant to talk or get on TV because they think that progressives like ourselves are attempting to ridicule. Anybody who follows here knows that's never my intent. My intent is for dialogue. My intent is for communication, and that is what we got. So we got her to go ahead and come in, and she actually, I was very impressed with what she had to say. And when I heard her, that immediately told me something. What it told me is, it said, we are going to get this done, because enough people now are not, I mean, it's not just about a poll. When they take polls, that is one thing. Activating is the other, right? A poll is passive. people doing something after a poll, or people doing something with their bodies, meaning voting, meaning rallying, those things tells you a little bit more about the intensity. Listen to her.
Ms. Jill Hoffman.
Jill, generally speaking, conservatives are aligned with the NRA, and generally speaking, they want to hold on to their guns or whatever. Tell me, why are you taking this particular stance in this issue, on this issue this time around?
I think because the narrative has resulted in most people thinking, that generally speaking, conservatives are aligned with the NRA. And in my experience, most conservatives are not aligned with the NRA. But the NRA speaks for all conservatives, and that's just not. We need to reverse that. The NRA is not a good actor. They're deceptive. They are a 501c4 organization, and they should not be in lobbying. They have limitations on how much they should lobby for their tax status. They clearly have much more influence than a 501c4 organization should have. And I think that conservatives like myself believe that this is an issue where there's a lot more common ground than not, and we need to be the ones speaking up and neutralizing the NRA's influence.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, I think her answer was so honest. Like I tell what I try to put out as liberal, or I am a liberal. All of my listeners and watchers aren't liberals. I have quite a few conservatives, etc. And I like the idea that we also have conservatives for one specific reasons. And I always tell people I need a stopgap, right? Or I need a backstop. That is to tell me, hey, when you're moving in a lot of direction, come on, stop a while and check and see if it's, I think it's a good thing to have magnets pulling you in another direction, because it makes sure that you are firmer in the beliefs that you've had. And what conservatism has done for me is increased my liberalism, increased my progressivism, increased my left-wing way of thinking. Believe it or not, that's what conservatism has done to me. So anyhow, going back to the rally. The rally turned out perfectly. Afterwards, I went on the mall and spoke to a few people on the mall. I didn't record them all because a lot of people didn't want to be on video or anything, but they wanted to talk. That's the thing. They didn't mind. They didn't want their face on video. They were shy to be on camera and all of that. But what they wanted to do is talk. And I asked the same questions to dozens of people, if not maybe hundreds, but dozens of people. And that question was, why do you think there's going to be anything different here? I spoke to a whole group of Michigan teachers, and I did get that one on video, where they said, you know why it's going to be different? Because it's the kids that are running with this thing. And what we are doing as teachers, these are the Michigan teachers, what we are doing as teachers is we're supporting them. Because so far, the adults have failed them. And I mean, that was the magic in hearing that, right? In other words, you accept responsibility for what you've done wrong. And, now it's time for somebody else to take the mantra, because given that you were unable to do it, let somebody else do it. And those kids, I mean, the way they arranged that, I mean, there were several adults came up to me when they saw my KPFT press pass out there, and they wanted to talk, right? And one of them said, I was here for the Women's March, and I'm here today. And she said, this is so much better organized than the Women's March. I couldn't believe it, because I do remember specifically watching these teenagers on 60 Minutes saying, we are going to arrange this. We are going to take assistance from others, but we won't let others dictate what we're going to do. And if you take a look at the programming that they did, they had somebody like Kaman on, and Kaman came and he sang. Devada came and she sang. All these people came and they sang to entertain. But the people who carried the program, the people who had the message, were the students, were the teenagers, and the very young adults who said this was their march, the march for our lives. So we ought to congratulate these guys for doing a great job. We ought to stop talking about how lousy the millennials are, how irresponsible these young people are. Because I'm going to tell you something, and I work with a lot of young people that, in fact, I mostly work with millennials. And the fact of the matter is, I don't find them irresponsible. I find them sometimes throw their hands up in the air because of what the adults, supposedly adults, have done to this country thus far. It is not their fault that they have to go out in debt to go to college, and that they won't be able to buy homes like their parents did because they're so much in debt and have to pay so much more than their parents had to pay to go to school. It's not their fault that the infrastructure that we have today is falling apart. It's not their fault that this disparity is really eating at the core of America like a cancer. Those weren't things that they did. Those were things their parents who elected fraudsters into office to do. A quick answer to somebody who asked if I was using ODS. No, I'm using Wirecast. Now, so let's be clear now. Let's be very, very clear. That is whose fault it is. Now, I said today the program was going to be about what again? About unions and why we must unionize. And I didn't forget about that, folks, but I needed to talk about that great, great rally in Washington, D.C. Altogether, when it was all over, people were empowered. I continued to do more interviews. I'll put more blog posts up with the interviews that I did with people, everyday folk on the streets. I think it was not only entertaining, it was enlightening. It wasn't only enlightening, but it was uplifting, and it gave the average person who went, the average person who saw it on TV, that impetus that says, we can do this thing. And we will vote those folks who don't specifically start to change what needs to be changed to make sure that we move forward. And to put it bluntly, somebody says we need to stop using the word gun control and start using gun safety. I don't care what the hell you want to call it, okay? I like gun control, to tell you the truth, because I think we need to be honest. But for those folks who want to do messaging right, I am with you. I understand that, you may want to start talking about gun safety and to get gun safety, what you have to have is gun control. But if you concentrate on gun safety, maybe you'll get some of the folks that don't like to hear that word control. And you know what? I understand. I understand that. But anyhow, the program today, the Americans must stop being scared and unionize throughout the country. We must stop being scared and we must unionize throughout the country. Unions are necessary. No employee should believe it when their bosses tell them it will hurt the company. None. If a boss tells you that being in a union will hurt the country, he is lying. If he says it's going to hurt the company, he is lying. Because the whole idea of collective bargaining, the whole idea of it is to make sure that the employees get their fair share of the spoils, which for the last 50 years or just under 50 years, they have not partaken of it, as union representation has fallen to new lows every year. What it will do is prevent the company from benefiting inordinately from what? Your labor. It is imperative, if the middle class is to survive, that we put on a campaign to educate Americans on the issue that they must not listen to any corporation encouraging them not to form unions, but to ensure that they have their wages going up. Only solution, folks. Again, folks, if you're just coming onto the show, please go ahead and share this show. It is imperative, if we are to be the media, if we are to talk about things that the media can't talk about, because their masters, in fact, are the same people who advertise on their networks. So when we talk about the real reasons that you have to unionize, they can't tell you all of that. And why can't they tell you all of that? Think about it. They're advertising for Shell or for some of these companies that are that have non-union entities, or that have subcontracted work to non-unions. You have a lot of companies that like to do that, right? In other words, the company is a union company, nice company, and they support unions. But then they also contract a lot of their work out. And they contract a lot of their work out. Why? Because it's cheaper. And why is it cheaper? Because they can contract out to a non-union shop. So you get the same result, right? Those are the reasons why we should do that. Now, you guys should by now know what time it is. It's time for the weekly blog post. Now, I have a confession to make. I have a weekly blog post, right? And the weekly blog post is fused at this point in time only in my mind. I wrote the first couple of sentences. Then when I set up our entire system to broadcast to you, guess what happened? As you know, I was in Washington, D.C. with the computer, and I am not sure exactly what happened, but there is one of the channels for our phones, microphones, that went out. Or I said it went out. I actually don't know where it's at, so it's something that I have to go trace through it. All these cabling, and if I were to show you all the cabling in here, you'd be bewildered, because we have to send one channel here, bring another channel there, so that we can try to connect one network to the other network, meaning the Facebook network with the Blog Talk network and all that sort of thing. All of that sort of went haywire as I got back from Washington, D.C. So I started writing the blog of the week, and then I fired up Wirecast, and it was ready to go, and then it said missing USB-2. And I'm like, oh my God, USB-2, that's the microphone. How am I going to do a show without a microphone? Well, we're doing a show with a different microphone channel, and in the process, I didn't get a chance to finish the blog of the week. But this is how I started the blog of the week. This is how I started it. Today I spoke to a technician who works for a major corporation. I won't tell you how and why I spoke to this guy, because it would sort of make him a sitting duck for the ones who told me these issues. It turns out the corporation, who is clear does not like unions, is pressuring its employees not to sign any cards that will allow them to unionize. Corporations continue to tell their employees not to sign up to unionize. They say to them that unions will hurt them. And believe it or not, that's as far as I got with the writing. Luckily, it is a subject that most of us progressives, if we are not cognizant of the different pieces in that subject, we don't deserve the mantra of calling ourselves progressives. Because I tell you what, one of the major issues in progressivism is that we must have unions. Anyhow, let me tell you the story. This guy comes and he says, well, you know, he's a technician, and he goes and he says, what's occurring with us now as a company? Suddenly we don't understand what's going on at the company, but they started to send out all these letters, emails, constantly telling us, if somebody approaches you to sign a card about unionizing it, don't do it. Unionization will hurt you. It'll hurt you. It'll probably cause a whole lot of folks to lose their jobs, etc., etc., etc. And a lot of people are buying that sort of stuff. A lot of companies are also putting that out. In fact, I think that should be illegal to put out. In fact, I personally believe every single hourly employee should be a union member. That's my personal belief. I think every employee should be a union member. But going back to the story, so he said that's the big concern right now with most of the people on the job. They're concerned about, should they go ahead and sign these things? Should they sign up for the union? Should they try to unionize? What should they do? My answer to them is yes. It is imperative that you go ahead and you explain also to your fellow friends, your fellow workers, the ones that you're fairly confident aren't what I call scabs, those folks who would break the union chain or whatever. You make sure and tell them it is imperative that all of them sign these letters and make sure that they unionize. Even in a state like Texas that's a right to work state. Well, I like to call it a right to work for less state, because all it means is that you can be fired at will. You know, it's amazing how they name things in a nice way, nice sounding way, but in effect it never helps the middle class. It always hurts the middle class. The Clear Skies Act actually allows you to put more pollutants in the air. So let's remember those things. These guys, when they're screwing you, they're always very good at naming these things. The Clear Skies Act dirties up the air. Right to work states mean the right to fire you or the right to work for less. Remember that. A right to work state is never good for you. All the states that are not right to work states are doing better for their middle class than states that are telling you we can fire you at will and we keep wages down. Anyhow, he said a lot of the people are concerned about it, but he started to notice that in his company, even though he has seniority, all the things that were promised to him, a new manager came in and just changed the rules, and the things he got for being senior at that position suddenly went away. That's the reason you need unions. The wages that he got, the way they pay their wages, that goes away. The way they get their bonuses, the way they're qualified for the amount of credits they get for a particular job is really unfair. And the only way to mitigate these types of things are having these people sign up for unions. Now, people would ask, wait a minute, but the companies are out there telling people, if you sign up for a union, somehow that is going to hurt you. Because the unions may put demands on us that cost us too much. Well, all those demands that they're claiming that will cost too much those demands are really benefits for you. And the reality is right now, we have an imbalance of benefits. When the CEO is making several hundred times more than the average worker in that company, it tells you that they weren't worried about benefits when they were talking about those guys at the top, but they're worried about benefits for you. The fact of the matter is, all the wage increases over the last year, since the recession, since the Great Depression that we had in this country, went to just the top 1%. So asking for your spoils, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now let's remind folks of several things. There is the Chamber of Commerce that is a group of corporations getting together so that their interests can be served. There's a metallurgical institution. There are hundreds of business organizations. They don't call themselves unions, but that's exactly what they are. These are businesses that coalesce, they work together so that they can make demands for the things that they want. They get together, they make demands on our government to pass laws that fulfill their needs. Employees, one by one, have not that opportunity to do that. Now, one of the writers inside of the under the post, and I'm going to get to answering and talking to you guys on Facebook in a minute, made the mention that I could name the hundreds of things that unions have created for us. All the 8-hour week, the vacation, paid leave. All those things are great, but they're not enough. They're absolutely not enough. I asked you a question, and I brought this up when we were talking about the issues about whether Bill Gates deserved the wealth that he has. Now, if you are the person who produces the income and the growth of that company, shouldn't you fairly get a piece of that action by law? We created an economic system that says no. We created an economic system that says, oh no, we can hire you as simply an indentured servant. You come and work for whatever hourly we decide to tell you it's worth, and your hourly is dependent on supply and demand, and we'll pay you whatever the demand says we have to pay in order to get you to work for us. We'll pay you the smallest amount of money that it takes to work for us, and whatever you produce, however billions amount of monies that we make off of it, once we pay you what we said it's going to be the hourly rate, we will go ahead and take all the spoils. That's our system. It's legal, right? That's how it works. And we've been programmed from birth to simply accept that. We've been programmed by birth to accept that whatever is offered as wages is all that we are deserving of. But the reality is it should be much deeper than that, and unions are the ones that can start the new process of aligning workers with the reality of wealth created by the work we perform. In other words, if we are making a company prosperous, it is incumbent on that company to to provide parts of that prosperity to those who created it. Not to the shareholder who did nothing, not to the managers who most of the times do nothing, but to the people who are actually the means of production, for the people who are actually providing the intellect, for the people who are providing all these features. The people who provide the capital are providing one thing that is easy to do. Give your capital. They say, oh, well, you're putting your capital at risk. Of course you're putting your capital at risk. But you know what? That guy who's building a bridge is putting his whole body, his life at risk. We are all putting something at risk. But some things are more precious than others. For those who believe in life, life is more precious than capital. And as such, hey, we should be compensating those lives that are creating or allowing your capital to produce for you much more than they're getting right now. Okay, before I continue with my my constant monologue, I'm going to heed what my people tell me, and I'm going to go directly to start talking to you guys and answering and going as I refresh, talking about see what you have out there that I need to answer or go forward with. But folks, as you're listening, please do remember to share the show. And also please do remember this is a call-in show, and I have that on the screen right now. Let's see. Bruce Ballard, they are deflecting our demand for gun control to gun safety. Bruce, I think you sent me a text to that effect while I was in Washington, and as I'm talking to people, I kept on thinking about that. And in fact, I told a few people, I said, hey, in Houston, they are in fact deflecting. They're trying to talk about gun safety instead of gun control. And I try to make peace with that in my head. I prefer gun control. But I think it is okay to make the overall subject, after thinking of it back and forth and talking to other folks in the crowd, I think gun safety is more all-encompassing, because guess what? Gun safety ultimately is going to mean gun control, because the only way you can attain gun safety is to have some level of gun control, in my humble opinion. If you think differently, please go ahead and either call in or drop a line and let me read that in real time. Okay, we also have let's see, William McCloy. We need to build all our unions in Texas and across the country. Absolutely so. Look, this country has hundreds of thousands, well, I don't know, maybe thousands of unions. And what they are different groups that get together so that they can get the bigger bang for their buck, and nobody bothers them. You have when you have a subdivision that gets people together to get more from their government, their local government, those are unions. When we have the Chamber of Commerce, those are unions. When we have the Metallurgical Association get together, those are unions. When we have a group of coffee companies get together so they can lobby Congress on the price of coffee, those are unions. So what's so special about not having employee unions as well? Nothing. What employees don't have is the power to negotiate on an individual basis. But when you get together as a union, you can tell that person, or you can tell the head of these organizations, let's sit down, open those books. You know why? They may say, oh, well, this is private. No, those books belong to us all, because we are all producing. And that is where we have to change the laws, folks. The idea that these private companies can hire from the outside and somehow say they can qualify for some sort of corporation status, which gives them personhood. Look that up, corporate personhood. And in doing so, they act as an individual, and at the same time, they want to deny others entry into what they're doing. That is and should be unacceptable. But let me go back to answering, going to the question. Chief Stewart, PAC Local 1002, Elena McReynolds, welcome aboard. William McCloy, great topic. Thank you, sir. Welcome back. Thank you very much, Bruce. Chase Escamilla, welcome. Thank you, sir. Thank a union for the list is too long. Like I told you, Pat Twing, if you want to add to the list of the union things, beyond increased wages, beyond paid vacation, beyond sick leave, beyond employee compensation, beyond workers' compensation and all of that, be my guest and add in more. Let's say Douglas Paville. About 2 years ago, back my friend and fellow volunteer medic reported my department to AOSH. I don't know if that's okay. Anyhow, when the new chief came in, he went after both of us. Okay, he went after both of us. He even had the major at the Salvation Army terminate me to get the department's white chaplain's helmet. They started down talking me at every place I applied for, saying I was a bad apple and I did irreparable harm to the Salvation Army. My fellow medic received $150,000 because he was the one who reported, but since he signed non-disclosure papers, he left me hanging and no one will stand up for me. I have gone through my life savings and looking at the streets. I don't know what I deserve for 25 years as a volunteer EMT firefighter, but I don't think I deserve this. Let's see. Let me tell you something, buddy. That's why you need unions, right? In other words, I think what you meant was OSHA. Is what I think is the organization that, or rather, the government agency that you reported to. I think it's OSHA is what it's called. Or yeah, I don't remember what it stands for, but it's OSHA. But yeah, those are the reasons you need unions, because like you said, as it turns out, you were left holding the bag, and nobody is going to stand up for you because they don't want to be in your shoes. They don't want to be left holding the bag either. But if there was a union, they couldn't have touched you. If there was a union, they couldn't have touched the other guy who reported. That he got $150,000 is good, but $150,000 won't go all that far. You know, I mean, it sounds good in the beginning, but it kind of depletes itself rather quickly. So, I mean, I see your pain. I understand what you're saying. Please remember, folks, those are some of the reasons that you need unions. And there are a lot of bills. Look, and you guys hear me talk a whole lot about the Powell Manifesto. The Powell Manifesto realized one important thing. Americans, and for those who've heard this before, I have to repeat it because there are a lot of new people that listens to the show over and come over new all of the times. And folks that are just coming to the show, I ask you to go ahead and share the show. It's very important because, again, we are going to tackle subjects in where so, in other words, if you notice today we spoke about an economic system that allows them to pay wages and that you partake of none of it, no matter how much a company makes. That is an immoral system. An immoral system says, I'll allow you to work for $10 an hour, but even if I make the amount of money that would have obviated your salary being $50 an hour, I keep all the spoils from that good stuff, that good labor that you did. We must create some sort of a system that mitigates that, even if it's not giving you your part of the spoils, making sure that through taxation, that money gets back into the system and gets recirculated. It's look, I am not saying that those are the exact answers to the issues that we need to talk about or the exact answers to this particular problem, but I'm saying it's something that we have to explore because the fact that your work creates so much wealth for others, for a very minute amount of folk. Your wealth, your worth, your work creates so much. And because of the way our system works, you are not rewarded for that. The only solution, I said, is two things. One is to have strong unions, a whole bunch of unions that can open the books of all these companies and say, this is what my union members are really worth to you. And we want our portion of the spoils. That is the, how should I say, technically speaking, that is a capitalist way of doing it, right? Why? Because it's supply and demand, and it's also based on what your real worth is. Your real worth is whatever they are able to make with what your hands have made. But right now, what we have is you are nothing but a slave. If you're an employee, you're a slave. Until you partake legally of the earnings of that company, you're but a slave because you're paying what they're willing to pay you. And you can say, well, you know, if supply of employees get tight, then they'll have to pay me more. Not true. And the reason we know it's not true is that we're at full employment right now and wages are still down. I always tell people who talk all this crap up that they learned in business school, and I want a friend, not a friend, but somebody who comes to the show came and he said, Egberta, you need to stay in your lane. Give me what degree you have in business. Stay in your lane. That's what he told me. Look, just to be fair, my elective was economics 101 and beyond, macro and microeconomics. Did very well in it. I also decided to go ahead and take up, started working on my MBA. To be frank, I got bored. I've told that story before, and I simply went ahead and formed my own darn company and did very well at it. Quit it to do full-time politics as I move on to poverty, because I think this is this is something that needs to be done. Somebody, we always talk about people who say, somebody has to go out there and fight the system to make sure that it is fair to everybody. And I used to say the same thing. I said, I better put my actions where my mouth is. And that's what we've done here. But anyhow, going back to the real subject at hand. The real subject at hand is simple. It is very, very simple. Until we change our economic model so that your work is honestly paid for by law, we need the counteracting force to protect you, to ensure that those on top don't take all the spoils from your labor. In other words, if you're working at McDonald's and the owner of that McDonald's is making a killing because your productivity is huge, those lines coming into McDonald's is long all the time, and you're just working your butt off all the time, and you continue to get $10 an hour. Come on, guys. You should be making more by law. But that's not how our economy is set up right now. So the only solution to that is to have those who can negotiate on your behalf and demand that they pay you what you're worth. And the only way you can do that is to say, we'll unionize all the fast food workers. If all the fast food workers get unionized, and we say, after we look at the books, we realize that our real worth to you is based on this, and you can still make X amount of profit as you like, then if you don't pay that, all union workers, all fast food workers will go on strike. When there is the fear of not them losing some of their monies, but all of their monies, that is where you have the negotiating power of a union. And that is what you must do. When the man came to visit me today and spoke about how his corporation was threatening them and forcing them not to sign up for the union, I started to explain to him that there's legislation going through, card check legislation going through the Congress right now that they needed to be concerned about. Right now, if 50% of people sign up, automatically the union is created. That's all they need. 50% of the people, if 30% of, they get 30% of on the card check system, if I recall correctly, and I'd have to kind of reread that again, but 30% sign up, the company is forced to have a silent, what do you call it? A secret ballot. And the reason you want the ballot secret is in case the union doesn't get formed, you don't want them to retaliate on those people who decided to say, no, we want a union, we must have a union. Okay? All right, let's see what else I have to cover here from you people, wonderful people on the site. Because I don't think people realize my husband's company joined the union, best thing ever. His company has to pay a prevailing wage. We got a raise and really great insurance benefits. That is what forming a union is all about. And you're not hurting the company and you're not hurting yourself. You're taking what is yours. Right now, what is yours is being stolen. The problem is it's not spoken that way. When you watch ABC, CNBC, MSNBC, they don't speak to you that, they don't tell you that your labor is being stolen. They don't tell you that. But your labor is being stolen. If somebody's making a whole lot of money off of what you do and you're making a pittance, and you can hardly afford to send your kids to school. You can hardly afford your groceries, your rent, or whatever, but yet you're making somebody else billions. You're being robbed. There's no two ways about it. When corporations, when the government overtax corporate, they talk about being robbed. Come on, folks. Let's get with the program. Let's see if there's any other one. What's your worth? What? Your worth is your paycheck? No, your worth is not your paycheck. Your worth to that company is your paycheck. Remember, your humanity has nothing to do with your work. That came from who? Mark Kovac. No, Mark, I was not attempting to say your worth is your paycheck. Otherwise, we would be giving teachers very small worth, and anybody who reads my blogs know that for me, the most important job on this planet to keep it going is the job of a teacher. Whatever teacher that is, whether it's a professor, whether it's an elementary school teacher, whether it's a kindergarten teacher. I think those are the most important people to society right now because they are the ones who carry knowledge forward. So no. And they don't get near the pay they deserve as teachers. If I am willing to pay more taxes so that teachers are well rewarded, and some of the executives, however, within the teaching profession be removed, because I tell you what, there are a lot of these guys that we don't need. But that's not where the bulk of the problem is. The bulk of the problem is that we don't give the teachers the support that they deserve. Okay, Daniel Ledo says, LOL, laughing out loudly. Okay, let's see what he has to say. Historically, it is union representatives that do the intimidation. That is a fallacy. That is a complete fallacy. The person who is paying the wage, the person who's dispersing the monies, are the largest intimidator, period, bar none. You cannot say, it is funny to me, right? We have some interesting ways of looking at things here. Who is the intimidator? So sometimes when I hear those statements, it sort of gets personal. I was going to issue a statement with the police, but I won't do that because it will take us out of scope of this program. But you cannot say that the union, who is trying to get what's best for its members, and many times don't, in some states that try their utter best to minimize their power, is the bully. Sometimes they have to attempt bully tactics to get what's best for their employees. And yes, that may require intimidating an employer. The thing is, employers keep employees in a state of intimidation. If you take a look at this man who I spoke to today, this technician who is getting emails every day warning the employees not to sign the card to become a union shop, that speaks about the daily intimidation of corporations on their employees. No, Mr. Ledo, it is not the unions that intimidate. In fact, I wish the unions would do more intimidation because it likely would be more in the interest of their members. But again, because we don't have a media that covers things appropriately, more than likely they make the calculated judgment that they have to behave accordingly so that they will not be misrepresented in the media. Okay? Let's be real here. The intimidators are those with power. The intimidators are those that are providing, and I'm going to go there anyway. People talk about who are the people that folks need to be scared of. It's the person, the people, the organizations with power. Nobody should fear me, but everybody should fear that cop with a gun. Remember that. Okay, let's see if I have any more here. I think I just saw another one popped up. Bear with me. But I want to make sure that you guys are fully and entirely engaged. We have Rena Perpetua. Thank you. Teachers receive no respect in this country. They are the most important professionals we have. You know, that's what I preach. Read all my stuff. I love teachers. I remember back home in Panama, teachers were, you went to the store and you saw a teacher and it was like reverence, right? It was like, oh, la licenciada this, la profesora this, or look, you know, we were like very reverential to these people because they were the teachers. They were the ones that held your knowledge in their hands, you know? And we never came out and say it like I'm saying it, like, oh, you know, I'm glorifying teachers. No, we never said it. And the things that are not said are generally the most important things. Those are the things you mean, right? I don't have to tell you I love you. I can show you better by the things that I do. How do I know I love politics? How do I know I love doing what's necessary to move the middle class out? Because I've sacrificed for it. I don't have to come out and tell you I love doing this. So I don't have to do that. Actions speak much louder than words. That's why a lot of times you simply don't listen to words. You see what someone does with their lives, and that tells you so much more. So I agree 100% with you. So if you're a teacher, Rene Perpetua, thank you. Keep up the good work. You know you have my respect. Ha ha ha, what a joke. Daniel, I won't call him that. I mean, Daniel is a nice guy. He tries his best to be a good troll. Daniel Ledo tries his best to be a good troll, you know? And the thing about it is I know the young man, he's a very good guy. He's not a bad guy at all. He's a nice guy. He's just, I don't even know if he's really brainwashed by the right. I think sometimes he just wants to be controversial. But because I think he's smarter than buying the crap that they sell. But folks, we're coming close to the end of the show. And I didn't have any calls today, and to tell you the truth, I don't know how successful it would be in all the connections that actually failed thus far. But we're coming close to the end of the show, and I want to tell you something. We are going to make a change in the country. I can feel that it's going to occur. And I'm not only talking about on the gun issue. I'm talking about a whole lot of other issues. It's not going to be fast, and it's not going to be overnight, and it's not going to be a straight line up at all. I've been watching what's been going on, and I tell you, I know it's happening, I know it's going to happen, but what I want you guys to not ever do is lose hope when we slide back. We're going to move 10 steps ahead and back down 3 or 4 steps, and move another 10 and back down 3. With Trump, we back down. I mean, with Trump, we back down a whole bunch, and we're going to have a lot of cleanup to do. We're going to have to rebuild the environmental agencies. We're going to have to rebuild the different agencies that pass regulations. We have a lot of agencies that we're going to have to rebuild, because again, we allowed ourselves to be conned by a charlatan, a rather evil person, to put it bluntly, a person that has no feelings. We allowed ourselves to be conned by this guy. But don't despair, because the change is really coming. But I tell you, to make this change, we all need your help. And programs that are willing to tackle the issues, programs that are willing to give a voice to those who don't have a voice, programs that are willing to add to the story based on the populace itself. In other words, things that I don't know can come into this fold, because here it is, we're in a platform that you have a bidirectional access to. In other words, I may not know something, and you may tell me I need to know something, and I get that out there, I look it up, I research it, and I put it out there, and now something that you know that everybody else should know, have the opportunity to use our reach to get out there. To use our reach, which is pretty vast, to get out there. That is what it's all about. The type of communication that we have with MSNBC, CBS, and ABC, it's good to some extent, but it's not all there. It is through more intimate conversations in the thousands, in the millions, that get the job done. And that's why this new media affords us to do that. But that's why this new media is also under attack from folks like, or rather from folks who are opposed to net neutrality, which means free access to the internet to all. And these are a whole lot of these other issues out there that we have to look about, and that's why we are here. So what I ask you is, if you're watching this, whether on podcast, whether on blogcast, whether live or whether later on, to go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright and go ahead and subscribe to this show. Make sure that we can keep this show going. Make sure that we can stay on air, because we do need your support. These things are not free. And if you can assist that, we can keep on doing this. We can keep on getting better and better at it. We can keep on giving you a voice, which is what we want to do. The voice, a lot of people think that the voice belongs to all those people with those advanced degrees in particular areas. You know, remember that person who didn't like what I had to say about the economic system. He told me to stay in my own lane, and he asked me what was my educational background. Little did he know, yes, I'm a real engineer, and engineering is one of the toughest subjects one can take in college. And also, yes, I did take a minor in electives in economics, and oh yes, I started working on my MBA degree, and in all these things that was, so I understand all there is to understand about our economic system. I didn't need an MBA to do it. I didn't need a PhD to do it. If I were teaching it, I probably should have one of those, but I am opening the door for people to learn about this, and not only learn about it from myself, but to go ahead and have the avenues to look up things that they need to go ahead and look up. So to that young man who said to stay in my lane, no. For those people who tell you to stay in your lane, no. You do your homework, you learn, and you have new things to bring into our shows. You bring it, because that is how we learn together. So if you will, please remember to continue sharing these programs. But likewise, please go ahead and become members. Become subscribers of Politics Done Right. As I told people, I support these progressive programs, not only my own, but I support dailycoast.com, opednews.com, thedemocraticunderground.com, coffeepartyusa.com. And why do I go ahead and support all of those with my small donations to them every month? Because if we're going to make a change, we have to be just like the right. We don't have the funds that the right has, but what we have is a whole lot more people. And if we can get hundreds of you being members, being subscribers to programs like ours at very small levels that you don't miss, levels of a coffee, we can make a difference. And that is what we're intending to do. When I was in Washington on Saturday for that meeting, all I could say is, look, the reason those kids were able to do that is they had those few donors, those many donors that came in and contributed and helped put one of the best pieces of activism together. But we have to keep that forward. The way I brought you those interviews, the way others are doing that as well, other programs like local programs and national programs like ours are doing that. That is what it's going to take. So please go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright and go ahead and become a subscriber. And folks, thank you so kindly for listening to the show. This is Egberto Willies on Politics Done Right. You guys have a wonderful rest of the afternoon. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES, that is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.